So to start off, could you tell me a little bit about yourself, like your job title, what industry or field you're in, how long you've been in it, roughly the size of your organization, as well as where you are based?
I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. My current role is I'm the managing director for the Center of Organizational Effectiveness for a firm called Workplace Options. And so we are in the wellness, health and wellness space for large enterprise organizations and their employees. Uh, how I got connected to NC State, which will give a little bit more background, is I was a part of a software startup that grew up on Centennial campus. And then I had two other companies on Centennial campus over the years that we built businesses and worked very closely using interns, the 492 CSC class for a lot of years. And so joined the CSC advisory board many years ago, and they've kept me on as emeritus. Not as active as I once was, but that's how I got involved with NC State.
That's really nice. And then do you currently use AI in your workplace? And if so, what kind of tools or approaches?
So I absolutely use AI in the workplace, and there's a couple of different levels and layers, right? So one is from a thought partner layer. So when I'm testing out new ideas, things that I want to bring to customers, things that I want to research quickly, AI has been a phenomenal tool to do that. The second layer is with content creation in terms of the first draft of presentations, first draft of RFP responses, different things of that nature. I use that as a very significant research tool. And then the third piece is in one of the businesses that I'm on the board, which is a digital marketing firm. We're transitioning to an AI first consultancy. And so that group of about 20 employees has over 150 AI related certifications because we're transforming the entire business and how we focus. So I would say AI from an individual use, content creation, but from a business use, everything from creating workflows, automations, things of that nature, and kind of all of the above. The big thing I would say is that I'm very focused on, and I'm writing a white paper currently on AI's impact on culture and performance in organizations. There's a lot of people that are looking at the technology component, and so that's not the lane we want to try to compete. It's really more about how do we get people receptive to a change that might alter their job in a way that they're not comfortable. How do we get people's skills updated so they can compete in the new AI economy? And so, how does AI become the productivity gain without it having a negative cultural impact because people are afraid? And so, the white paper around that is my focus area about AI fluency, education, and adoption is really my focal point from an AI standpoint.
Well, from what you already said, it sounds like it's really significant, like AI is really significant in your organization. So my next question is, how important is AI to your organization's operations right now? And how significant do you expect it to kind of become? And maybe if you could give us a time frame of this change.
So, in terms of how significant today, people are in the pilot phase. They're trying to figure out what AI means to them. And I think the organizations I work with aren't much different than that. We may be a little advanced in that we have a lot of technical folks and a lot of folks that are, whether it's building websites faster, whether it is building video content faster, things of that nature. Where AI will go is here's the phrase that I would use, right? If something's routine, AI is going to take that role. And it's going to create, however, open roles for things that are remarkable, your true innovations, your true ability to use AI information to build up the first 60, 70% of content, whether it is code, whether it is content, whether it is research, whether it is strategy. But they're still going to need people that understand the judgment layer. AI doesn't make decisions. AI gathers information and shares that information in a meaningful way. But if you just push AI out into your population, right, and your code is wrong, who's responsible, right? And so there are some, I think, gaps into what AI will be able to do quickly. And I think people underestimate the human component when they are navigating how much productivity gain they're going to get from AI. And one example of that is the verification tax. So AI talks about how fast you can write code now, but how long do you need to check it to make sure it's right? How long is it going to take to debug it because it's not your code? Now, I'm not a developer, but one of the reasons I'm on the advisory board is I hired hundreds of developers. I ran a technology company. So these developers taught me if you've built the code from the ground up, right, you and your team, then you understand the schema that you built it with, you understand the assumptions that you made. So bug fixes are simpler because you're already intimate with the code. If you have to go in and find a breakpoint in code that was written by AI, that takes longer because you don't have the intimacy. But people are only equating the positive productivity cost of writing code faster. And I think people need to understand the verification tax, right, of what can actually be deployed that was built by AI.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So my next question is, what benefits or breakthroughs do you think AI could realistically make possible in your field? And this could be over the next 5 years or out to 10 years.
I think AI's ability to take large amounts of data and create pattern recognition is unbelievable and undeniable, right? There's just no way that a human individual or a team, right, can synthesize the same levels of data sets, right, and find areas that require more exploration. So I think the speed of producing knowledge work, the cost of producing knowledge work, and decreasing that. So increasing speed, right, lowering the cost, right, are two big things that AI is going to be able to do both now and in the future. The challenge is what are the things that you want AI working on, and how do you know that the output is correct? So I do think that people have to be really thoughtful about what tasks they're giving AI. If you think about a new employee in an organization, you onboard them. Then that employee has different experiences to get the contextual flavor of the business, right? Well, with AI, right, how do you onboard AI? So in my personal AI, my personal Claude, I had to onboard AI by uploading books that I've written, by uploading podcast transcripts that I've written, and the whole training of AI, right? Now, when you think about that at an enterprise level, it becomes more difficult because if different departments create different structures for AI use, now all of a sudden you're going to have different outcomes and different levels of use throughout the organization. It's not a bad thing, but organizational scale is about replicatable processes, right? And if everybody's doing a little bit different, then you're actually losing what enterprise scale is meant to be. And so there are some complexities with that over the long term. But I think it's a very strong strategic weapon, and it'll help any knowledge worker be 4 to 5 times more productive, depending on the level at which they understand prompting, and more importantly, that they understand what excellence looks like. So if a junior professional, let's say I'm going on a consulting project and I'm doing a go-to-market plan for a company, right? And we both have the same level of AI skill, but I have 20 years of personally hard-won industry experience, then I can shape the output of AI better because I know what excellence looks like, right? Versus when you don't have that level of experience, AI is really good at making things sound good, right? But if you ask AI, I asked Claude this question, and I'm rambling a little bit, but I said, Claude, when you do the first two iterations on something, how accurate are you? And Claude said, well, the first two iterations, I'm guessing. Like that was the answer. Just he said, I'm
Yeah.
guessing. Well, who wants that, right? And then I said, well, what happens after 7 or 8 iterations on a project or a code piece? He said, well, then the ownership of the thinking transitions back to you. Now I'm following your lead because you've guided me, you've trained me, you've given me what looks good, what doesn't. So now I'm accelerating your thinking and I'm no longer purely guessing. Now I have enough logic of how you're thinking about solving the problem to accelerate your thinking. But most people don't understand that the first 2 to 3 responses they get from AI are educated guesses. And that's kind of scary because a lot of people are pushing out content on the first and second iteration, right? And so anyway, those are some of the things that the uninitiated is going to get them in trouble. And typically when you're selling something or pitching something, you're pitching something to somebody that is very experienced. You're a buyer. Somebody wants to hire you. Somebody's going to promote you. Somebody's going to fund your business, right? So that means if you produce something that's average but looks good, and then like it's going to get called out, it's not helpful, right? Because it's going to be very difficult in the new economy for average thinking to accelerate, right? Excellence. Very difficult, right? So the barometer of what good judgment, high value thinking looks like is going to get higher. And so those
Mhm.
people that can think across disciplines, we're talking about AI from a computer science lens. But one of the questions maybe later is like, what are the skills mapping required to AI ready, right? Young people, right? Multidisciplinary learning is going to be business critical. If I don't share anything else of value in this hour, the ability to think across different functional elements of a business is critical so that when you're working on AI related projects, you have the context of how the business runs, not just how the technology is built. That's going to be the skill set for the people that retain and grow their careers in the future because all of the routine work is going to be started and taken to 80, 90% done level by AI tools, AI agents, all the things, right? And that is coming. That's a tsunami that can't be stopped. Like that's just, you know, people that say AI is just a fad. Well, it's a fad that's going to run you over if you don't get on board with it. So, but that's my answer to that question.
So now going to kind of training and workforce needs, we've already kind of discussed like some obstacles, which is kind of having that uniform usage of AI throughout like a company or industry or things like that. So everyone has different levels of usage or different ways of using AI tools. So do you think that there are any other bottlenecks or obstacles that are currently preventing your organization from utilizing AI more effectively?
I think both my organization and I do some consulting with some other organizations on AI adoption. It's really the way that it's implemented. Um, if you implement AI top down, that's where the fear comes from.
Mhm.
If you work within the organization to identify where AI can add value to the work that people are doing, when you are creating skills mapping to create readiness for employees, now all of a sudden AI is a tool to help them do their job better, right? And so there is an internal marketing packaging messaging that I think
Mhm.
organizations are getting wrong with AI. Because a lot of leaders feel behind in this AI journey, they're actually making ill-informed decisions to try to catch up. What people need to take a deep breath is that nobody knows what they're doing, right? Like this is uncharted territory with a set of machines that are more powerful than any other technical advance ever. So because it can do so much, we think it's supposed to be so fast. But AI is outpacing the ability for humans to actually absorb what it can produce, right? And so when you take that into consideration, and the fact that a lot of the AI pilots and different things are not really showing the return on investment, different things like that, the reason is because it's been a top-down push when I think it should be bottom up, right? You should be, in my perspective, right? You educate because the more you're educated about something, the more you want to participate in the conversation, right? If you're not educated about it, right, you're going to stay to the side. Just think about a high school dance, right? If you've never been to a dance before, right, then you're sitting on the side, you're kind of talking to people, right? But if you're good at dancing and you've practiced and you maybe had some dance lessons and you love music, right? You don't care who's on the floor, you're going to go get into it because you're competent, you're trained, you're capable. So all of that anxiety or most of that anxiety is reduced because your readiness is higher. So I think the biggest thing for young people is to get your general AI readiness high, right? And the organizational responsibility is how does AI add value to the business so that what you're comfortable with aligns with what the business needs. And so I think if people look at AI strategy as a bottom up exercise with broader participation, then I think we can eliminate some of the roadblocks and focus on the innovations and have fun with it.
Well, talking about kind of that AI readiness perspective from organizations, my next question is what AI training is currently available in your workplace? And do you think that it is currently sufficient? And do you think that there are any topics that you'd like to be covered that aren't currently part of the training? And do you think that it should happen within the organization or outside of the organization?
I'll start with the latter first.
Mhm.
If I were giving advice to young people or people early in their careers, Do not wait for your employer to train you on AI. Do not wait, right? Because the portability of careers is going to increase. And so I think AI is the one of the bigger things that needs to be individual learning first, because you know your job. And then you then can help determine the ways AI can help you with your job and then add value to how the corporation does their training. The second part of your question was around what things I think are working or lacking in AI training in organizations. Most organizations are training a handful of people. All the tools and resources aren't available to all. It's not fully institutionalized just yet in most of the companies that I'm seeing. And so it is more heavily individual based. And then what is happening is AI orchestration and automation lives typically still in IT or in engineering, right? Whereas it should live closer to learning and development, people and culture. And I think that's a mistake that people are making. If you, let's use, let's say you're in a play, right? There's a script for the play. There's a director, right? There's somebody that's working on the costumes, somebody working on the set, somebody that choreographs the dance things, right? And because everybody knows their role, everybody can work in a unified progression, even though they're doing really different things. Most organizations haven't thought about what's the script, what are the roles, what are the things we need from each department relative to AI so that we can all participate, but we can participate based on our areas of strength and knowledge because it's AI plus our domain expertise. And so I think that we should think about AI education very different than traditional training. AI training needs to be more workshop driven, more hands on, and more directly tied to the work people do every day. Those are the things that we help people with to accelerate adoption.
And then transitioning into kind of expectations for new graduates, who do you think is currently the best position to navigate the advantages and disadvantages associated with AI in your workplace? And this can be from new hires all the way to executive level.
So let's start with new hires. Well, this applies at all levels. And so I'll tell a quick story,
Mhm.
but I'll be brief. So I was talking with a potential candidate it was a senior level candidate for one of the firms that I'm on the board. And so I was a part of the interview. And the person was doing really well. They were in the finals, but where they lost the opportunity is we started talking about things that they didn't have experience in that would be a part of the job. And they their answer was, I'm not sure I'm comfortable, right, doing X, Y, and Z because I don't have experience in that. Most of my experience has been in Y. Okay. Horrible answer. Because in the world of AI, adaptability, learning capability, it's not what you know, it's not what your experience, it's how can you demonstrate learning something new and applying that learning quickly because everything's changing. So like she thought she was being honest, forthright, and she was, right? That's an old interview thing. Here are my strengths, here are my weaknesses. I don't want to overstate those. That would have been good 5 years ago, right? That's what she was trying to communicate. In this day and age, it's a horrible answer. And the reason it's horrible is it's not about experience. You can learn literally, I mean, almost anything you need to, right? With AI tools and a good true north of what the outcome is, right? That the employer wants. So it's not about your experience. Her answer should have been, while this isn't my domain expertise, how I would learn and get up to speed on this is XYZ. And as long as I have some lead time and learning time, I'm happy to take on new experiences that are learning for me and growth for the company. That's the answer today, not about what you're not experienced with, because everything can be learned so much faster. And I was I was like, because I really like I enjoyed the candidate, like I was cheering for her, right? Like I wanted it, I wanted to move forward, but the the biggest thing, Swathi, is a growth mindset, adaptable thinking, right? And so what would I guide with new graduates? If you think about not so much college and not computer science, but if you think about high school, so much of high school is memorization of facts, right? Preparing for standardized tests. So think about a test, SAT, or if you're going to grad school, GMAT, and different things, standardized tests that people that are really smart can game the system. You can get a tutor, you can read the handbooks, you can do the things because it's standard, right? That's not the business world anymore. That is, there's nothing about standardized in terms of the things we need. Everything standard will be automated by AI.
Mhm.
So what I want from college graduates that I'm interviewing, and we hired in one of my firms, this is a different example, this is a great example, a junior in the business analytics department at NC State. The reason she got the job, so now I'm going to talk about a good thing, right? Is she had started a business while she was in high school and grew that business to make 40, $50,000. She was a business analytics major and then had a minor in like creative design. So she had a really unique differentiation of the things she was trying to learn, right? And then when we asked questions about her not knowing, she was like, you know what? I'm not really experienced in that, but if you give me a few days, I'll get spun up. And if there's somebody to help me, I can go make it happen. Right? Like she said it just like that because she's a junior in college. So we weren't expecting her to have a polished answer, but we wanted the answer to be about adaptability, readiness, and take on new challenges and use the existing tools. So she was hired the very same day. We didn't want anybody to talk to her but us. We were like, hey, when can you start? Right? Because that adaptability, right, is so valuable in what I'm looking for across the businesses that I work. It is not 20 years experience in this. It is not GPA in this, right? If you're in computer science, I want to know what you built. I want to know the AI agents you built to help you do your job search. I want to know the AI agents you built for your side hustle. I want to know what you did in your 492 class. I literally don't care about the common base foundational things that you did because I know as NC State, all of that's going to be pretty solid across the board, right? Tough school to get into, got it, right? A lot of history in terms of the quality of the graduates, got it, right? It's all about judgment, adaptability, flexibility in the new economy. And I feel pretty strongly about that.
And going to kind of the educational credentials section, do you think that there are new kinds of AI education standards that are currently needed for new graduates entering your organization? And if so, what do you think that these could look like?
I'll take a pass on part of the question. You gave me that freedom. Uh, I don't know about standards, right? Like in, what should be every graduate should have different things like that. I don't think that's my lane. But what I will share is that there are a plethora of certifications in all things AI. So what I want from new graduates is what they did in their structured learning and then what they learned creatively on their own and applied. Right? That could be startup, that could just be three or four different certifications so that you're learning new and different things. And so it really comes back to my other answer is learning adaptability. I want competitive learners. That's really what I think the world is going to value at a premium in the new economy.
And then on the flip side, do you think that any of the existing like education requirements are becoming less important because of AI? So any of kind of like coursework and research or writing, math, existing maybe coding skills, or any requirements like degrees, internships, or licenses are becoming less valuable?
Let's talk about what I still think is really valuable. Somebody that has the intellectual horsepower, the problem solving skills, the puzzle skills to be a developer, these are good skills. So I wouldn't change that. However, what I would emphasize is that managing software development projects will always be valuable. That's the enduring skill, right? The person writing the code is going to be less and less valuable, the person that understands how to build a QA system around AI tools to manage the code flow, to understand how to work with remote teams in project managing software development projects. I think those are going to be more valuable. So I think we always call them soft skills, but I'll say the people-centric skills around technology is where I would spend more time earlier. And the big thing I would say is if I look at NC State and the 492 classes I've worked with over the years, those are senior design classes. All of that should be earlier. That's the biggest thing that I think is the miss, is that it's not until your senior year that you understand if you're a good collaborator or not, how to communicate with different stakeholders, right? How to solve problems that are ill-defined, right? Those are the kind of things that come towards the end of the education cycle. And I think that's backwards in today's environment.
Thinking back on your own education and training, what aspects do you think best prepared you for your work? And do you think that AI could in the future change how valuable these things are?
AI has changed how valuable everything about what I do personally is, right? Like if I charge, I'll think of one customer in particular where we did a 2-day workshop for their marketing team in developing team building, cohesion, and some AI adoption, and we charged $25,000 a day. Well, if the organization is AI savvy, then it doesn't need 2 days, it needs one. There's information they can look at, build, research that we brought to them on their own. And then our value is still in the judgment, the use cases, the case studies for application. But AI is absolutely in every job going to cut out being able to charge a premium for routine work or thinking. And that has no discrimination on generation, on role in the business. Let me give another specific example that could be helpful. So McKinsey is one of the top consulting organizations in the world. They have a large development organization. They have a large consulting organization. They are a go-to for enterprises in terms of new thinking, innovation, all the things, right? Well, McKinsey changed the ways that their partners are compensated because their deal size is shrinking because of AI. IBM lost 25% of their enterprise value on the stock market because AI is changing the amount per hour they can charge customers for the same work. So, in terms of the impact AI is having on businesses and thus what college graduates will go into competing for roles, it's tough out there, right? Everyone needs to be chasing uniqueness, differentiation, right? Because anything that's routine is going to try to be automated away. And to the central question, is it's affecting from the new grad to, I won't age myself, but I've been in the business world for quite a while. So, and it's affecting me too. Now, the difference is I'm not running from the impact it has on me. I'm chasing the knowledge so that I can be part of the solution. I can create new opportunities for myself. But some of the things I used to do, it's a hard pill, but it's just not as valuable. And another thing I interview a lot, I talk to a lot of folks. There's a lot of layoffs going on. So people that are making 150, 200,000, 250,000, whatever the case may be, the job they may be able to get might be half that. It is a very significant restructuring of what is the normal state in business. And I think that we should have, especially anything knowledge work, we should have our graduates with legit portfolios of what they've done. Not what their GPA is, not the clubs they were in. All this stuff used to matter. We used to care. It was like, oh, this person's really active. The people I'm talking to, like, no, people don't care about that as much. It doesn't make it irrelevant, but it is not as as high on the radar. It really does have to do with your communication skills, verbally written. It has to do with your learning adaptability and your ability to learn and adapt very quickly. The other thing with schooling and the educational skills gap, it's not what we teach, it's the time that we ask young people to be smart. One of the biggest disconnects, right? If you have a project and you get 8 weeks to work on a project, well, how are you going to react when you have 8 days? It's very different than the academic calendar,
Mhm.
right? And so that is another area that I think pulling forward some of the controlled stress testing of being smart fast, right? That is important. If you think about NC State, right? And the millions of dollars they put into football and basketball, right? And it's all good. The companies, everybody's doing it, which is fine. But one of the things that they do is they take very young people and train them to work in a high pressure environment in front of 60,000 fans on TV where 3 million people are watching, right? It is that same kind of mindset that needs to be applied on the academic side because the pressure levels that will be expected of young people is going to just get higher. And that's it's not a bad thing, but it's a bad thing if you're surprised by it, right? If it's never like it's a bad thing if you're surprised. Think if we have a little time to plan and you know that's what's coming and how you need to think and behave and do, and you have an internship and then you're doing real work and all the things, well, then it's fun. You're chasing a new challenge. But if you're going through this kumbaya academic experience, right, and you're turning in your paper and doing a thing, and like, right, and then it's drastically different the first 6 weeks at work, man, that stress level, anxiety level, that success level changes in a pretty significant way. So I think we do a disservice to young people by not creating the controlled pressure. I'm not trying to break people. I'm not trying to make it a boot camp. That's not what I mean. But the controlled stress so people can really understand what that's going to be like.
And then going to the ethics and policy section, what do you see as the greatest ethical considerations around AI use in your field?
People have to be, governance is really significant, security. Um, we're all running around with these laptops. You got customer information. Can you put it in a public AI? Do you have a private one for your business? So I think it's really important that organizations have a pretty disciplined AI perspective on data use, on data security, and on which tools can be endorsed for client and customer information, things of that nature. Because with everybody using these new tools, there is a higher risk of data being shared unintentionally that shouldn't get out in the open. And then the second thing is that people pushing out, and we talked about this earlier, things that are deemed complete that haven't had significant human interaction to check on the validity of the content. And so those
And
are a couple things that I would look out for.
yeah. And then do you think that any AI related training, regulations, or policies that are currently in place need to change? And this could be either within your organization or the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion there because I think things are just starting to bake. So I'm
Mhm.
not avoiding the question, but I just don't have a strong opinion there. I was asked this, and I do have a strong perspective here. Um, Government restrictions around AI usage. Let's say, for example, AI usage for kids that are under 18, right? These are good things, right? There's got to be some level of controls on AI's use in our just general population. If you think about social media that had a similar rise, right? AI is more business infrastructure, so it is even more powerful, a tsunami. But if we think back 10 years ago when social media was the darling of everything, 20 years ago, all the things, we didn't pay any attention to the impact of social media on young people's thinking. None. We didn't none. And then 5 years ago, right, I'm watching a documentary on Netflix, and the leaders at the social media companies don't let their kids use social media. Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, wait, wait, wait. So you're pushing out intellectual poison that you don't want your kids to use, but you're cool with my kids using it with no protective ground rules, right? Literally just now, it's like there's teen Instagram, right? Like that's just the last couple of years, right? Like that people are even paying any attention to that. It's a similar issue with AI, right? Because you have to have some controls to the people that need it, right? And yes, free economy and all the things, America, all fine, right? But the reality is, right, rules matter. It's why we have a speed limit. It's why we don't want people drinking and driving, right? Like it's why you have to take a driver's test, right? A society needs some guardrails so that people understand behavioral norms that give you the freedom to do what you need for your business, but protect others, right? That's a basic thing. It's not a political thing. It's just a basic like a society baseline kind of thinking, right? Anybody disagrees with that, like I can't really even talk to, right? Because it's not Democrat, Republican. It's just like, how do we create a society that uses new tools in a decent way for everybody? Just be in a decent way. And and these tools are so powerful, right? That you don't actually know what they're able to verify or what they're making up, right? Like it's like I'm a big fan of AI, right? I'm using it. I'm trying to get on the cutting edge, but I'm equally as afraid, right? Like I'm excited and afraid because like it's think about AI picking. So if you look at the data, um, there is a pay gap between men and women in corporations. Okay. So if AI infrastructure is by and large built by men, there's some governance issues there. Now, I don't have all the answers, but there's some governance issues there because the training of the tool creates the outputs we receive. And if the trainers of the tool or the available information that the tool is pulling from is dominated by one group in society that looks a certain way, a certain gender, a certain perspective, then the ability of the tool to create thoughtful information, advice, and valuable information is reduced. And so those kinds of things concern me. Um, from a governance standpoint, I don't have the answer, but in terms of your question of what are some of the things on the governance side, those are a few that I'm keeping an eye on.